Hi everyone, welcome back to Chop's Garage. Today we're going to try and teach a novice bodywork. For those of you who don't follow me regularly, this Toyota Camry is a car we picked up from another dealer, and we've spent basically the national debt of a small country getting it fully up to scratch. It's had brand new tyres all round, discs and pads, catalytic converter, shocks and springs, cam belt, oil, engine, all the engine oil, gearbox oil, everything. And again, if you don't watch the channel regularly, you're probably asking why. And I haven't really got an answer for that. It's an automatic with 220 odd thousand miles on it, but there's just something cool about it. And we decided what we were going to do with this car is we were going to raffle it off. But one of the things we had to have done when all that work was done, it has an advisory free MOT now for a T-plate car, which is pretty mad, with 220,000 miles, is we had some welding done down here. So we need to paint this bit of bodywork down the bottom here. We want to grind that back, filler it. Well, actually, yeah, grind it back a bit and filler it and paint there. We've got various other bits around the car that need paint. We've got the spoiler here. We've got a scuff on the front. And a ding on the front as well. There. And a scuff there. So we just want to make it look at its best. But what I decided to do is, because of the holidays, I got my daughter in and she's interested in cars. And we're going to, and also a lot of you talk about, you know, if you do paint, you mess it up and you have problems. So what we can do is we're going to see if we can teach a novice how to do some decent rattle canning. So let's get cracking. So first we're going to take the spoiler off, because it's going to be a lot easier to work on it off the car than on the car. So we've got the two nuts off, and that should, there we go, free us up the spoiler. So now we can get cracking on that. So obviously we've got a crack to fix here. We've got this to sort out. We want to gouge that out and fill that. But first we're just going to zip the sander over the top. And I think we'll put a soft pad on this because we want to go around the edges as well. We're going to hit this up with a 150. I don't want to go 80 and put too many gouges in, but I do want to take quite a lot back. So we're going to zip along this. So just put it flat on there and turn it on the front here. You don't want to push down on it, let it do its own work. So that's that roughed out now. I say it's only that area we really need to spend a lot of time on. We just wanted to key up the rest of the surface and smooth it out a bit. So what I'm going to do, get now to go 320, so swap that disc out for 320. So this crack here, if we put paint over that now, it will still come through again. We've got to gouge that out, and we've got to filler it with something so it brings it level and doesn't let the paint soak in there. So we're using fiberglass filler rather than body filler, and this has got the little particles of glass in it to give us a nice strong repair, and it's going to be basically the same sort of stuff as that spoiler's been made out of. Don't need a lot, that's probably even too much there already. And as a general rule, you mix them up sort of a pea-sized dot to a, I don't know what you want to call that, tomato, let's say. Using the little spatula there, you're going to squeeze it into this gap. And a general rule, what you do is you gather a load of it up on the edge, trying to do it one-handed. You use the whole length of the spatula rather than just the corner of it. So if you get it like this, oh, I'm making a mess now. And basically just
smash it over the
squeeze it into the hole there. But you're trapping air in there while you're doing that, so we'll have to, that's it. If we left it over the top, we'd just be trapping a load of air in there, so that's it. It's a good way of doing it. So it's sitting a bit proud now, we'll let that go off, and then we'll run the sander back over it again. Now obviously if you're thinking of taking on a makeover project like this, you want to make sure you're not starting out with a pup. You need to make sure you haven't got a car that has been written off, stolen, or had the mileage fixed. So of course to do that, you're going to do what we did on this vehicle, which is do a car vertical check on it. It's super simple to do. I've got the app on my phone here. We'll just pop in the registration plate, 209 SUF. Off we go. The car vertical is going to do its thing. You'll get a report back like this, And as we can see with the Camry, we're okay for theft. There's no theft. There's no rollback of the Speedo. It's got no financial outstanding on it, so no finance, anything like that. And no damage recorded. So our Camry's come back okay with all of its checks, but that isn't always the case. Let me show you. Check out the report that came back for this BMW M4. It was okay for theft, but it had an alert from Car Vertical for the mileage. It was okay for finance, but also had an alert from Car Vertical for the damage to the vehicle. So if we scroll down here, Car Vertical's actually found images from the salvage auction of the damage that this car incurred. Quite serious. Whole front end looks to be really stoved in. As we scroll down, it warns us again that the vehicle may have fake mileage. And if we look here, it's got a notification for a rollback where the mileage drops. As we scroll down further, we can see the damage on this vehicle wasn't actually recorded. It's not coming up as a Cat N or a Cat S. So Car Vertical has done very well to capture that this vehicle was damaged before. You can see in the photos that this vehicle was then offered for sale later on in completely repaired condition. If you hadn't had this report, you would not know this was the case. Just shows again how essential these checks are. So if you're out looking for new projects or buying your everyday car, or your friend's looking for a motor, or you bought one before and you never checked it, never checked its history, make sure you use the code CHOPSGarage on Car Vertical. There's a link in the description down below and you'll get yourself a nice discount. Now let's crack on with this Camry. Right, while that's drying off, we'll tackle other parts of the bodywork. We've got this bit here that needs quite a bit of work, but obviously we can't put filler onto paint, so our first step is to sand all this out and get back down to metal so that we can put some filler in there, so it's actually got something to grab to. We've got some 100 grit here. We want to keep the repair area small, so we don't want to go, obviously don't want to graze our headlights, stuff like that, so make sure we stay where we are. Literally just using the end of our finger, get in there, sand this away until we start to see metal work, and we're staying in the centre of the dent. Work away a little way out to the sides. Alright? You see you got the centre of a dent there, so have a feel where it is, and keep your paper up so you don't catch the rest of the paintwork as you do it. That's it. So we got back to the metal there. What we want to do now is we're going to start putting filler in, but we don't want to get it all over our headlight, so we're going to mask our headlight off. What you want to do is sort of feed it underneath the other panel gap, slide it back and forth until it tucks under, that's it, and then pull it down, use the gap to your advantage. There you go, nice one. So with the filler, really spread it out, really mash it down so you get all the air out of it. That's it, you want to get all the air out. Just really push it quite hard into the repair there, that's it. Really force it in so you've got a physical bond between the two surfaces. So that's our first pass. It's a little ugly, but we have got two shapes to contend with here, and we've got quite a deep hole. We don't want to try and fill it all completely at first, so we're going to let that go off, sand that back, and it'll get another skim. Right, we're going to rough in now with 100 grit on this bit. So off you go, Brooke. Try and stay off this bumper here. You want to stay up there. In fact, so we've knocked that back. The important thing now is to feel it. So Brooke, if you run your hand along and tell me where you feel in low and high spots.
There's like a low part here and then it goes back up there.
Cool. Now we know that because we've gone through the metal there, and we haven't over here. So that is all a low spot. And the same here. There's a little bit of a low spot there because we're hitting the metal. Not too bad there. If you run your hand along there, it's not too bad, is it?
Not as bad.
But what we've got there is we've gone flat, whereas the bodywork is slightly curved there. So we need more filler in there. So we've sanded that flat, but in fact the body has a bit of a curve there. But that's all right, we designed this to do a second layer anyway. So we've got a second layer here on the go. We'll let that go off and then come back again, sand it again, this time with a soft pad to follow the curve and see where we've got low spots again. But now I think we can hit the spoiler back up again. Take a little bit longer in each spot. let it do its own work, don't push down on it. So we put what we think might be our final coat of filler on. We've got the green paint on there because I don't have any black. We're going to sand across here with a block, nice and straight, and find where our low spots and high spots are now, because where the green will stay where our low spots and high spots are. So keep the block flat on the surface. So run your hand over it. How's it feel now?
Good. Feels all the same. It's like all the same shape now.
It is, and there's no, we see we've got no green left, so we've got no low spots. All the green's gone. If you run your hand over there now, that's flat and that's flat. So we've just got some very fine shaping to do now. So there we have it. We've just drawn a swage line on to get a feeling for where we are against that. But it is all nice now. So I think what we need to do now is go finer sandpaper again, get out some of these deeper scratches, and then it'll be a case of filler primer, etch primer, sorry, then filler primer, then colour, then lacquer. Promoter on the panel. Now we're putting an etch primer on. Brooke's going to do that. So a bit slower, and an even distance from the panel all the time. And the trick is to start off the panel and spray over. Don't stop and start on the panel because you'll have a thicker area of paint. So good job there. We're not trying to cover it completely right now. We're going to use the filler primer for that, but this is just the etch primer to give us a base to put the filler primer on. So while we're waiting for the first coat there to go off on the etch primer, we're going to be scuffing up everything that we're going to be painting here. So although our repair area goes up to here, by the time we put primer on and filler primer, will probably be out here, and then our colour will be out here. So we want to leave ourselves plenty of space to blend. Like I say, I won't be putting colour up here, but it'll be lacquered all the way along here. So we need to do the same on the front. Although our repair is on the corner of the bumper, we're going to be shooting lacquer all the way out to here. So we need to scuff it, and the important thing is, as I was saying to Brooke, to make sure that we get the scuff pad right in all the nooks and crannies so that the lacquer doesn't peel off. So this is the filler coat that's going to fill all the pinholes and give a nice smooth surface. Again, it's the trick of going nice and steady, keeping an even distance away from the panel, and not so long that it runs. We're finally on the bit everybody wants to do, which is the colour bit. So as a metallic, we need to make sure we've got nice even strokes so we don't leave it heavy in one place. So off you go. And we're not going to try and cover it with colour now. We're just going to put like a tack coat on, nice sort of dusted coat, and then we'll come back and put a heavier coat on for the second round. Nice one. Nice even strokes all the way along, and end finish, start and finish your spraying off the piece as we discussed earlier. This is probably going to be enough. So second coat on, we're just checking coverage. Keep your phone nice, not too close, you don't want to drop it on it. And making sure that got a nice even coating on there. Looking good so far. Don't get too close, you'll end up whacking it. Looking good, yeah?
Yeah.
Right, cool. So what we'll do next is we're going to do a final sort of dust coating to make sure the metallic sticks up nice and high. So if we, does that make any sense? Basically, if we come back here and we dust it, the metallics will sit up nicely on it, rather than if we put it on heavy, they'll lay flat. So we'll get a nice metallic finish on it. And we'll just do an uneven dust coat over the whole thing to make it nice, make sure it's nice and even all the way along, like I say, and we've got a good metallic on it. So, last step, lacquer. I used a 2K, so I got Brooke to get out because I didn't want her anywhere near that, to be honest. And yeah, it's looking good. We'll let that harden off and check it in the morning. Some people might be thinking, what about the underside, James? I scuffed the underside before we did all this, so I'll be able to flip it over when it's hardened, lacquer the bottom half, tie it all in, use some fade out thinner along the front edge. But yeah, it's looking good. After that, we're going to be doing this corner here. Unfortunately, Brooke won't be able to join me for the other corner. But she's done all that, scuffed all that up, ready for paint. So we'll be able to mask all that up, paint that corner in. And then it'll be the the back corner. I need to decide what to do about this stuff here. I think I might use thinners to get this plastic coating off of here, and then stick chrome sticky tape over the top, cut it back with a blade to make that pop. Obviously, I've got to be careful how crazy I go on this car. It's already been a bit of a money pit for us, and it's never going to be absolutely immaculate at 225,000 miles. It was a well-used car, but we can make it look really good. So hopefully you enjoyed seeing the process of prepping that and made you realise that you're all capable of doing it with a bit of guidance. I'll get this done and then come back and show you the finished job. So I've done a quick mask up ready for the etch primer. We've masked these smaller areas because we want to take the primer out as little distance as possible. We're going to be flattening it back in a bit, so we'll pull all this masking back off and then remask for the colour and lacquer coats. But for the moment we want to, so I say, avoid the primer going out as far as possible. We're going to dust some on at first because obviously we want to make sure that we've got something for the other coats of paint to grip to. Obviously this has been sanded to a point where it will, obviously it's got something to grab to already, but again, we don't want to lay this on thick straight away. Put a dust coat on, then come in with a second coat, and then we'll be ready for some filler primer. So it's just a case of, check the can's got going okay, and just dust some of this on here. This doesn't need to be too pretty. This is the etch. We're going to put filler primer over the top of this. So I'm just going to lay this down, like I say, to give the filler primer something to grab to. And we're not looking for full coverage. We're just, like I say, dusting that on at the moment. Right, I applied the high build filler primer now. This is the stuff that will cover in some of the smaller pinholes, odds and sods. It's a little bit reflective when you first put it on, so it gives you an opportunity to check your reflections and see how it's looking in terms of the body line and so forth. And we look fairly good. Gives us an idea of what it's going to look like with some lacquer on it later on as well. So it's an early stage to allow you to try and pick up some stuff if you missed it. Right, while waiting for the filler primer to go off, we're going to see what we can do about tidying up this weld line along here. Now, I was initially thinking that we'd be able to filler it and smooth it in, but the way it's been welded, that's straight and then that curves down quite a lot. I'd have to use a lot of filler to build a curve back there again. So I think our best bet is just to tidy it up as much as possible, grind back as much of this weld without thinning it too much, and then see where we are. Now, the best thing to stop thinning it too much is to use a finger, are these called finger sanders? I forget what they're called now. File sanders, sorry, file sanders, because they use sandpaper at a speed where it's really good at taking the metal off, but it doesn't heat the metal up too much, and you can be really accurate with it. And there we have it, smoothed it out an awful lot all the way along there. You run your hand along there, there is the lip. There's still a bit of an angle, there's still like sort of a straight in and a down, but it's lost all the weld blend on it. So now I'm going to go over that with 80 grit on the sander and try and flat that right back as much as I can and see where we are. As we can get it without removing more material, and we don't want to start going through the weld at all. It is a lot smoother, it's still rough. When we could use stone chip up here, which would give, it would mask it more because obviously it won't have such an even surface to shine, which is one of the options available to me, which the more I think about it, the better an idea it might be to sort of stone chip up to that line and then go on the other side and match it up. But maybe I'll put a skim of filler on it and see how it comes out. So put some filler over that weld there. I'm just going to block that all in. Like I said, I don't think it's ever going to be perfect because the angle's too sharp. We'd have to put too much filler on. So there we have it. Ended up putting quite a bit in and then taking a lot out. And we've got like a fairly smooth transmission there. It's never going to be bang on. I can feel the metal's a little warped in a couple of places from welding. But a lot better than just leaving that welding line in place. I say it's not a line of sight area, so it's not going to be a biggie if there is a little bit of waviness in it, but it will look, like I say, it'll look a lot better. So we'll get this all painted up now. So bottom section here looking a lot better. I did miss some pinholes along here, But to be honest, this low down on the car, I'm not going to go crazy trying to sort that out now. It looks obviously a lot better than just the primer, and obviously now ground down the welds and smooth that in a bit. It looks a lot better. So that, yeah, at the end of the day, with respect, I cannot go crazy time-wise unless I do have a business to run. It's not a money-making car. It's just a case of, and it's not a low mileage one. If it was a 30,000 mile one, we'd make it immaculate. So I think that will suffice perfectly well. So wait 15 minutes now, because it's raining outside. It's a bit of a cold day. So wait 15 minutes, and then we will put another coat on. If you're really hot day, you probably only need about 5 minutes, but we'll put another, probably couple of coats of filler primer on the bits, like we've done on the front corner of the bumper as well. Then we'll let it harden off, and then we'll take, like I say, all this masking off and sand the filler primer. Probably just key it up with a scuff pad, but also make sure we take it as far back as we can. So again, we want to minimize the amount of space we're putting paint on, make sure we keep it off the top part of that wing. So demasked from putting the filler primer on. So what we'll do now is we'll scuff this filler primer up. If we want perfection, we let it harden more and then probably wet sand it possibly to 600 maybe to get ultra smooth finish. But at the end of the day, this is probably not the car to invest that amount of time in, to be honest, bearing in mind the rest of the paint has got lack appeal and fading on it. Since doing the spoiler, I've realised how bright the new paint is versus the old paint, so it's so important that ideally don't go right up to that line there. So yeah, like I say, what we'll do is feather all the edges here, make sure they're all feathered in, key up the primer so that it's, again, is going to take the colour well, and then remask up. Losing a little bit of the light now, so we need to crack on. Got that colour down, so now we can start applying the actual correct colour. Now we've got a good feel that all the surfaces are okay. Doesn't look to be any dramas now, famous last words. So let's get some of the correct colour on, and then we'll be on to lacquer. So now onto the lacquer. I've put a dust coat of the lacquer on already. So now we're going to go with the heavy coats. You want to put the dust coat on first, sealing that metallic, so that when you put the heavier coats on, you don't make the metallic run. You kind of want it to lock that in a bit first. So yeah, we'll put a medium coat on, and the next coat will be wet. So we're going to hopefully get it done with just one more coat. The idea of this coat is to give it a finish that means I won't have to machine polish it, take all the orange peel out of it, so lay it on a bit wetter. We'll take the torch over it and make sure that I haven't missed any spots. You don't want any dry spots that you spot later on. That'll be a pain in the bum. So now we checked it all over with a light, we're going to hit it with some fade out thinner in the blend areas. So this is just a case of dust to quitch, like that there, and then over here. I have it putting a bit too much on, so don't necessarily pay too much attention to how much I put on there. So I took the heat gun to it, I got some of that cloudiness out, made sure it's going to clear nicely. Now this is the point where you just leave well enough alone. I can already see there's something going on here, a bit too much fade out thin on this end. I'm going to have to buff out. You can see there's a little bit of dust got into this end as well for some reason. But you can't do anything about anything now. You've got to let it all harden off, come back to it later. And chasing perfection can cause you more hassle. Also noticed that somehow some cobwebs got over there. I don't know quite how that happened. So, but overall it looks good. Obviously we've lost our dents and our scrapes on the corners of the bumper and on the wing there. You saw how large the repair area gets when you start sanding things. Apologies that Brooke wasn't able to stay and finish that, but prior... Oh. See, there you go. Don't leave things lying around that you might trip over. Prior engagements, unfortunately. So, like I said, I think it probably will end up needing a buff looking at it now. It's a bit cold today. I should have warmed the can up a bit. But then there's always the risk that it runs. And obviously, as we've said, the rest of the paperwork on this car is not going to be perfect. So, and obviously, I can see a couple of reflections now where it could have made it a little bit more bang on. But overall, well, we'll see in the morning. We'll unmask it and have a look in the morning in the cold light of day. I think we've managed to keep the original colour at the top edge here. But again, we won't know until we unmask it. Because that's obviously original colour there. And that's our new colour there. It's definitely brighter. But at least it shouldn't be edge to edge. So following morning, time to unmask it all. I'm looking at it. It's a bit more orange peely than I normally get. But it's looking good overall. Like I say, I've got something to fix over here with the putting too much fade out thin on there. But I want to let it continue to harden for the moment. Just going to get all this masking off. So what we need to do at this point is take the areas that we scuffed up and blended the lacquer and hit it with the green 3M pad and the perfect cut to blend all that back in again. So we'll just get all the rest of this off now and see how it's all looking. Unfortunately, you see we didn't quite manage to keep that colour away from the bonnet. It's slightly dark along there. I mean, obviously it would have been worse if we went straight up to it, but it's still out. But it is what it is. At the end of the day, car this age with this amount of fading, any fresh paint was always going to look different to the rest of it. So we'll just go across the whole rest of the car, machine polish now, just make it look as best as we can. Final bit of bodywork. I've just done a quick spot repair here on a bit of lacquer peel just to tidy it up a little bit. So now we're going to get it all unmasked and give it a proper clean. But the video is getting on a little bit now, so if you want to see the final transformation of the Camry, you'll need to tune in on the next video. So make sure you are subscribed and get notifications when the next video comes out. We're going to give it the full final detail, engine bay, bodywork, machine polish, interior, everything. And in that video, you're also going to find out how you can win this car for just £1. So massive thanks for watching as always. Thanks to my helper Brooke, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers guys. Oh, and don't forget, don't get burned on your next car purchase. Make sure you use that link in the description down below to get your car vertical. Thanks again. See you soon.